everybody. Welcome back. We're going to jump into the questions that I'm sure all you guys have been waiting for, especially the women. We're going to talk about relationships just a little bit. My brother George here just got married in March. Kudos to that.
Praise God, praise God. It's been a long time coming.
Absolutely. So, some of the things we want to talk about is just marriage in general. Mm-hmm. And I know there are a lot of myths out there that people talk about in marriage. So I'm hoping you can debunk some of those myths today. So as far as being married, how is marriage going so far, bro?
Yo, marriage is great. Like I always tell people feel like marriage is this whole big deal. Like I would say there wasn't too much that changed when we actually got married, because it's just like even if you get to know somebody 100%, when you live with them, you got to get to know them completely again. So it's just a learning process on a day-to-day, like learning and growing together. Like I believe marriage is a sanctification process, kind of like being a believer is, because you never learn all that it takes to be a believer. Yeah. So it's a day-to-day process where you have to continue to die into yourself. And if two people are willing to do that, the marriage will work.
That's good. Yeah. And I know that people say that the first year of marriage is the toughest. Yeah. And I know that obviously you're in your first year. Yeah. So far, do you feel like, and because we're in COVID right now, you're here on a daily basis all day long. Is that something that you feel you guys like head to head? Do y'all have to be in separate rooms during the day? Like, it's like, nah.
No, see, we live in a one-bedroom apartment right now.
Yeah, that's
so ain't too many places to go.
Yeah.
But what happens is, like, even when COVID first hit, when we first got married a couple months in, it was kind of tough because we had different ideologies. I'm like, listen, nah, girl, we gotta be safe. We ain't going nowhere. She's trying to go out for jobs. I'm like, listen, it's Corona out there, so even indoors. And she's like very like, man, I don't want to be in here just stuck in the house. Let's go do things. Let's go and see the city, and let's go. I'm like, listen, unfortunately, we got married during the pandemic, but that was because we didn't have much understanding of each other and the way that we think at that time. Mm-hmm. So now that we were, getting to know one another more on a day-to-day, we start to learn each other's habits and things. We start to grow together, where she might not even need to ask me what I'm thinking, because she already knows. She anticipates my needs and I anticipate her needs. So It's just growing together. And learning one another, like I said, is a sanctification process from glory to glory. So
yeah, I was watching a sermon from Mike Todd, right? Mm-hmm. He was saying that just almost like very similar to what you're saying, like marriage is almost like coming to Christ. And he was like, before, when you came to Christ, you didn't really love Christ before you came to Christ. Mm-hmm. But the love came on later on. Mm-hmm. And he used that in context of marriage. And he was like, it's very similar to marriage. Like, you might have thought you loved that person before y'all got married, but you really just really liked them. You liked them so emphatically, so much that you might have said, okay, we love each other. Mm-hmm. But the real love comes later on after you're married. So do you feel like learning, or I guess being married now, do you feel like your love has grown, or like you feel like, okay, we in love now?
Absolutely. And I think the whole love thing is kind of, sometimes it's blown out of proportion, because we just think that love is this feeling that I get when I see this person. That's how I know that I love them, right? And that's how I know that, I'll do anything for them. But you don't really know until you have to make choices that go against how you are feeling at that particular time. Yeah. Because love is an action. For God so loved the world that he gave, right? So in that, it's like, I'm choosing to die to myself on a daily basis because of my love. And I might not feel it. I might not feel it. Like, we might be in the thing, we just don't even feel anything right now. Right now it's hard. We're having arguments or whatever it may be. But that doesn't mean that you don't love that person, because you are still choosing to be in that marriage and be there and be present. So it's in choosing daily choice. Like, okay, even if my wife has offended me for the last 2 weeks, it doesn't matter. I'm going to choose to love her. I'm going to choose to do things that she does not deserve. When we look at how Christ loves us, that's the same thing. He gives us grace. He gives us mercy. Love is patient. Love is kind. Right? 1 Corinthians. So I would say that my love has grown since getting married. Because what I thought, because you have an ideology of what you think the marriage is going to be like before you get in. But once you get in, everything is out there. You're exposed. Like, she'll see my weaknesses and I'll see her weaknesses.
Yeah.
And those things are out in the open. It's not like you meeting up, going on dates here and there, but you'll see everything out in the open. So in making that choice on a daily basis, like I'm still going to love outside of anything and outside of whatever it may be, that is how your love truly grows, because you're still making that step, taking that step daily, and then you can you'll see people, I've been together for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Why? Because that feeling might not have been there. That butterflies is gonna fade away after some time. But when you continue to choose to love this person on a daily basis, then you have something that's greater than butterflies. It's actual solid love.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know one of the things that guys deal with a lot, that we talk about when we get together as guys is, in our singleness, we talk about having a wife and everything, but how did you know after you know how to bring this up?
Yeah.
So when you met your wife, everyone has a different experience. Some people will say, listen, when I met my wife, I knew right then that was my wife. And some people were like, nah, that's not how it happens. Like, you don't just know like that. So how did you know, at what point did you say or realize that, oh, you know what, this woman is gonna be my wife? Was it like when you first saw her, like, oh, like, you know, like a movie, like, oh, here she comes, that's my wife right there? Or was it like, you know, time after y'all went on dates? Like, how did you know, at what point did you know, like, oh, that's gonna be my wife?
Okay. Man.
You know I'm gonna bring it up.
Yep. So for me, it wasn't, it was actually really weird how it happened with us. We met at my best friend John's wedding, and I was the best man over there, and she was doing makeup. So that was really where we actually met. Okay. But I didn't know who I was gonna marry her. We just exchanged numbers and we went out. So when things started getting serious, we started dating for some time. Things started getting serious. What we would do, one of the things that we would do all the time is, like, we would pray together and we would ask God, is this your will for us? Is this the person I'm supposed to marry? Because we didn't want to waste our time or get too far ahead, and then God says, no, this is not your spouse, or this is not my will for you. That was something that was very important to us. We must have spent months praying on that. Like, we would pray on that, and we were not getting an answer from God, right? So then we started to study the Word, and we were like, how many people did God show who their spouse was in the Bible?
Yeah, that's a good question.
How many? And when we found, it was two. It was, tell to Mary, sorry. Joseph, Joseph, the husband of Mary, and Hosea, right? And even in those, Joseph was already betrothed to Mary, and Hosea, the Lord told him, hey, return back. So if you look at the word, it says, and he took a wife, and he took a wife, and he took a wife, and they begat such and such, right? And that goes back to the same point. If love is a choice, if God said, here, this is your spouse, I'm not saying that God can't do that, but if he just kept on saying, this is your spouse and this is who you're supposed to marry, then you might feel like, I don't need to do any work because God has already ordained, God has already said this to me, so I'm good to go. Yeah. So when we came to that realization that, love is a choice, and that we were going to pray and we're going to submit our desires to God, and we know that the plans that God has for us are greater than our own, so God is not going to let us ruin our life. We submitted that to God, and we said we're going to move forward until the Lord says no. That's when we started getting confirmations left and right from people that we didn't know, prophecies, different words, people in Ghana, people in America, like all these things. It was back to back to back to back to back, because we just said we're going to have faith in God and trust that He is going to lead us, right? And that was that revelation that we needed. So for me, it was more so based on her character. Like when I started seeing her character, I was like, somebody who is submitted to the Lord, everything else will work itself out, because their character is based on, what God is going to tell them. So even if they don't feel a certain way at a certain time, or even if they might not meet certain specifications, what happens is if they're submitted to Christ, then even if they do wrong, they will turn away from that wrong because of their fear of the Lord. So that was the one thing that was very important. That's one thing that I found in my wife.
Dang. All right, y'all. He's dropping gems, so y'all make sure y'all take notes.
Praise God.
And you spoke about something earlier that I wanted to jump back to, just the ideology of marriage. So in our minds, we always have an idea of what marriage looks like. Hey, when I'm married, you know, we talk about these big things like when we married, it's gonna be like this, and it's gonna be like that. What things did you find to be true?
Yeah.
And what things did you find to be completely like that did not? I thought it was gonna be like this, ain't nothing like this.
Yeah. Let me think about that one. So obviously companionship. I found that the companionship is great. You know, somebody that's there for you through thick and thin. Somebody that's there with you when you wake up. Somebody's there to do things with you, to go shopping, talk to you. If you're sad, if you're happy, whatever it is, to experience life together. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that I really wanted in a marriage, and that's one thing that I found. Mm-hmm. What's one thing that wasn't there, or it's not what I thought? Yeah. So if I look at my mom is somebody who is very, very, very submissive. Mm-hmm. She's very like if she came in here, like she has a business, but what she does is she'll serve her employees with coffee and donuts and the guests, and she'll do it every time. And my dad even got mad at her for doing that at the meetings. He's like, "Yo, why are you doing that? You're the business owner here." And she's like, "No, listen, it's in my heart to be like this very submissive person," mm-hmm. and that's something that she is. So for with me and my wife, she's also submissive too, but in a different way. In the fact that she is she's a leader in like the ministry that she's in, and she's the oldest of her 3 siblings, mm-hmm. and she's always been in like leadership positions. So when I was going into marriage, I'm thinking that okay, as soon as when I come in, what I say is about to be law, kind of like how my dad is. But my wife was more so like, hey, let's have a discussion about this. And, what's going on? Right. And I didn't like that at first. I'm like, wait, what the heck? Yeah, that was not something that I was expecting, because I was expecting it to be kind of like how my dad and mom's relationship is. Yeah. Right. So that's something that we have worked through and even because at first I was just frustrated, mm-hmm. but now it's like just getting an understanding, right? And I'm like, mm-hmm. okay, why do I want whatever I say to be law, right?
She started making you think like,
yeah, right? Because sometimes she can add certain things to the conversation or to what like we're actually trying to decide, mm-hmm. that I might not have thought about, right? Because even though I'm very calculated, there may be certain things that I missed, right? Because mm-hmm. the Lord has created her to be a helper. So if I'm not letting her help and I'm just feeling like I can still do things and she just follows, now is that really being helpful, or is she just really just following that which I've already been doing already?
That's good.
Yeah, so even just looking at that from that perspective has helped tremendously.
Wow. Yeah, that is that's really good, because you're right. The Lord created her as a helpmate, not
mm-hmm.
as a submissive mate. I mean, even though He asked her to be women are submissive to their husbands, but mm-hmm. That's not her. That's not how she was created. Like God created her to be a helpmate. So yeah, and I found definitely even. I know that that's true, because I don't even have to be married, and I know that there are women that just friends of mine in my life that will be like, I will be going through something, or I'll say something, mm-hmm. and they will check me, and I'll be like, okay, like, and I thank God I have friends like that, but they will not just check me, but in the end it'll help me, and it'll help me come to a better conclusion, whatever I'm dealing with. So. Mm-hmm. Behind every great man, even when I look at Barack Obama and all these guys who I look up to, like all of them have strong wives, mm-hmm. And all of their wives are not just they're not always in the forefront, but they're always there, mm-hmm. and you notice them, you recognize them. It's like, okay, listen, there's no one thing that I applaud the U.S. on, just in general, is the fact that when you're in office in the White House, mm-hmm. You have to be married. Like, mm-hmm. there's always a man and a woman. Mm-hmm. And I think that because we actually recognize that women help us, mm-hmm. and so that man alone in the White House is not good.
Yeah,
he needs a woman to be there to also help him, even on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's definitely a great thing that we do. So
I will say this about the strong women that you said. I feel like sometimes though, some women might feel like their strength is in emulating men. Isn't like being like, no, I'm a buck, right? Like we're gonna go and fight fire with fire together. Yeah. That's not. Women are strong, but that's not how God has created that strength. I think God has created a strength in the femininity. Like a woman can get you to do something by like I don't want to say coercion, just by like what God has given to her, like just being soft.
Yeah.
More than a guy can come in and try to impress upon me, like, yo, I want you to do this right now. But sometimes women might misunderstand that strength and be like, I want to be strength because I want to be strong in a separate way or in the same way that guys are strong. But that's not really how God has created us. He created us different.
Yeah.
But women definitely have strength, but it's just not the same way that guys might be strong. And that's okay because when it comes together, women might be more nurturing, men might be more whatever else, but when it comes together, now they are able to complete the task or the assignment that God has. So I don't want us to feel like, even in that kind of thinking about guy strength versus girl strength is the same. It's different, and it's okay to be different because God made us that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that people always talk about, one of the questions is always nowadays. So you're married now, but you got married in your 30s.
Yeah.
So a lot of people
early.
I'm just trying to.
All right,
man. So a lot of people will say, nowadays people are getting married later.
Yeah.
And it's like they're worried, like people are getting married later. Like my grandmother will call me and she will be like, "Son, are you like, have you found a nice woman yet?" And I'm like, "No, grandma. It hasn't changed since last week when you asked me." So, because she got married when she was very young, she's kind of like worried about me, and I'm like, "No, come on, like it's gonna be okay. We're gonna work it out, guys. We'll work it out. You don't have to worry." But I think that's one of the big things that we face or we think about, like in guys or just in general, like okay, marriages are later now, but do you see a benefit to that in your marriage that you are in your 30s? And I know I talk about it all the time, but I talk about the fact that women and men sometimes go through things in life, and we all have baggage coming into relationships. And I feel like God does not create two people to be like, he doesn't take a half a person and another half and put them to make it as whole. Like I don't know what movie says like, you complete me. I don't know what that movie was. I think it was a movie like You Complete Me, and I was like
probably a rom-com.
I don't know. But I know one thing I looked that I learned from other married men was like, hey, listen, getting married, you don't want you don't want your half and her half to become one whole. You want you guys to both be whole as one, and then come together in marriage. Do you feel like you benefited from getting married like in your 30s versus if you got married when you were 25 or 26? Do you feel like that gave you a leg up, or there was an advantage in your marriage at all?
I would say that it helped me as far as with maturity.
Yeah, especially for guys.
Right, with maturity because obviously we mature
just a little bit.
A little bit slower.
Yes.
Than women. But also I think that what happens is women in their single season, they're all like preparing for marriage, right? Where like I remember one time a couple of years ago, I went to I think it was like a marriage session or something like that, where they were just talking about relationships and marriage and things like that. And I got there and I was dating at the time, so I went with my girlfriend, and there were, I would say maybe about 4 other guys who were there with their girlfriends, looked like they were dragged just like me. And then there was about 98% women there. And some of them were single, they weren't even in relationships, and they were preparing for marriage. They were having a seminar, right?
Yeah.
So in those things, like women are reading books, women are watching sermons, they're watching series, they're getting all of this knowledge and wisdom on what it takes to be like a wife. So even if they're 22, they're almost ready, right?
Yeah.
But guys, we're not doing those things because we're like, listen, I'm 22, I'm trying to get money, I want to build a house, I want to get this, I want to make sure I'm established, I want to make sure, but I'm not even thinking about marriage at that time. So I think that yes, we mature slower, but at the same time, there's things that can be done that you So if somebody was actually putting in that same preparation or that same hard work to get themselves there, they could do it and get married at an earlier age and still be on that same track. But it's just that guys, we don't do that. So we find that guys tend to marry a little bit later than women do.
Absolutely, I think so. I think that's something that is common as well. And so, so we're gonna wrap this session up on marriage. So thank you, George. We're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about a little bit about singleness. So we're gonna discuss that. So you guys stay tuned. All right.